Welcome everybody as you begin to filter in here to the Zoom webinar. I'm going to try to keep this as high level because I know there's a good mix of attorneys on this call, as there are other financial advisors just like myself. And my goal is not to make everybody an expert in special needs planning from a financial planning standpoint here, but really share with you some of the common planning pitfalls that I see from a financial planning standpoint, talk about ways where the financial, the legal, the government benefits, how we all really need to be working in synergy together and navigating what I call a three-person retirement. And that three-person retirement changes pretty much everything from a financial planning standpoint, which is why financial planning for special needs cannot be cookie cutter. It cannot be from well, you have somebody this age, this is how you invest their money. No, it's got to be as unique as the individual that you're planning for. And when you're working with these families, what I found in the over 10 years I've focused my practice on this is maintaining quality of life and lifetime care. But for who? Yeah, we focus on the child here, their minor child or disabled adult child, their lifetime care and quality of life, but we can't forget about mom and dad's quality of life and protecting their future care needs as well. When that day comes, which is hopefully not for a very long time, is that for the parents that they have the peace of mind that their child's going to be better than okay. I mean, I don't think anybody has ever settled for their child's IEP being just okay or their ISP being just okay. So why settle for your financial planning or legal planning to just be okay? We need to make sure that things are maximized for everybody, while still protecting government benefits and using them where they are needed, trying to provide as equitably as possible. This ties into the retirement income planning discussion as well in terms of what assets are better left to which heirs, and most importantly, minimizing the impact that Uncle Sam is going to have on this legacy value that we eventually leave behind. So taxes, just as our president is possibly going to do, are probably going to go up over the long run, and in most cases, even though the Secure Act made it a little bit more favorable to leave pre-tax retirement accounts to a special needs trust, we want to be cognizant of the fact that taxes are probably going to change and probably not in our favor. So where do the mistakes lie? So attorneys, financial advisors, you probably see this. There's no coordination amongst everybody. The legal person stays in their legal world. The financial people stay there. The tax advisor may be around only during tax time, but there is no open flow of communication, making sure all of these professionals are working together. The other problem is some of these professionals just may not be the experts that the families need. And since everybody on this call, I believe, is focus their practice on special needs planning, we are the ones that are here to save everybody, save them from bad legal advice, from bad or average financial planning advice, from tax planning that misses out on some of these key deductions and tax planning opportunities for these families. So, but most importantly, I think it's our job to really advocate for these individuals that may not have a voice at the table, and get their parents or caregivers to plan proactively, to stress to them the importance of doing this before they die, and why it's an absolute mess if they don't. And reactive planning just leads to a lot of inefficiencies. So all these things, the excuses that we would get: I don't have time, there's a pandemic, I've got other stuff going on, I don't feel like it, I'm young, I'm not going to die, my child's young. We know that stuff can happen. And 2020, I think, taught us that crap can happen at any time. So it's, the importance of getting it done and having it done right. So what I've done over the years in trying to educate parents on what goes into a special needs plan. Well, in my opinion, there are these three main areas, right? The attorneys, you guys work in the legal side. We, as financial planners, work in the financial side. And then there's the world of government benefits that I think all of us know enough to be dangerous about. But we're not going to, probably most of us are going to walk somebody through an SSI application or navigating waiver, but connecting them to the right people in the community to help them handle the person side of this, to get all the benefits that are out there, to create this plan that is more than just money or legal documents, but that it's life for this individual that may not have any say over what their quality of life looks like the next day, the next month, the next year of every year for the rest of their life. So For whatever reason, I don't think the community gives us equal weight, though. And I'm not an artist, so bear with my terrible chicken scratch here, but this is what I use in every initial meeting with clients and as a refresher for existing clients to explain to them, where are our roles? Where does the financial planning and the legal planning, how does it differ? Why can't most attorneys do what I do, and why I can't do what any attorney does? And the importance of having these things. And one of the things that I stress in this, and in the creation of the legal documents that you attorneys work so diligently to do, is that the creation of a legal document like a special needs trust is not the creation of this magical unicorn asset that came out of thin air that has any tangible value, that has anything that can be exchanged for goods or services or experiences. It's a legal document. And I don't want to dumb down the legal work that the attorneys do, but it's a stack of paper, not the type of paper we want to use to pay for things, but it's paperwork that is going to do a very important job of protecting the assets that that trust eventually owns when that trust document or those trust provisions actually become a trust fund. And I don't think the vast majority of families know that. They think that special needs planning begins and ends with having a special needs trust, which it doesn't. And I try to paint this picture as clearly as possible, but let's just think of that worst case scenario. Somebody died yesterday, and let's just say they have the best special needs trust by the best attorney, one of you on this call, but they don't have their financial house in order. They don't have the right amounts or types of life insurance. Their investments aren't in the right places. And now we're costing tens or hundreds of $1,000s of unnecessary taxes, and depending on how assets are left. And there's not enough money there. There's not enough money, let alone for the special needs trust, let alone all of the heirs. So tell me, what good did it do having a legal document like a special needs trust if the financial house wasn't in order? The purpose of that trust, not only protecting benefits, but providing for quality of life and lifetime care, it's not going to happen. So that's why I tell people, it's like, great, you need a special needs trust, but you need the finances. You need enough money, enough assets to do what you want this to do, which is take care of your child, which is, look, if we have the financial pieces in order, the investments are positioned the right way and the right types of accounts, and they've done the due diligence and had the right amounts and types of life insurance, is that, look, if they had died yesterday and at least that those assets were there, we can do some reactive legal planning. Yes, it's not a third-party funded special needs trust, but at least there's enough money there. And then those that just focus on government benefits and forget about the legal and financial pieces, it's government benefits are there to provide a floor. I mean, the government's not going to provide quality of life the way most parents envision quality of life to look like. So I think it's an education that we all need to equally take part in, to tell families that you can't just do your financial piece. You can't just have a portfolio and, great, you're beating the S&P 500. Wonderful. So most people are, or at least tracking it, but that doesn't mean you're going to have enough money to retire off of. And it definitely doesn't mean your child's going to have enough money when you're gone. So, proper advice from all three of these areas is extremely important, if not integral, for a proper special needs plan. Everybody on this call knows about this $2,000 resource limit and where these benefits are important. But like I said, these are a floor. The floor is important, but that floor can differ greatly if parents don't do this proactively. So I think one of the things that I see, and this is from a legal standpoint, is there's a lot more that can be done by attorneys who are a tremendous trusted resource out there for families to say, great, you're done with me. We have the trust, you have the tax ID number if you're getting one, we have everything set up properly. But now here's the ages, mom and dad, that you need to be aware of, what you need to do at 18 and why we're going to be talking again, what you need to do with transition planning and why they start doing it 14. It's 7 years to plan for life outside of school once the bus stops coming. Why you need to do certain government benefit applications typically before your child turns 22, and then what happens at 26, and how you navigate healthcare at that point in time. So there's a lot of times I've seen people with some really good special needs trusts by very well-respected attorneys that never heard from them again. That 18th birthdays have passed, that transition has occurred, and there was no conversation at all. And they're sitting there, and they didn't even know they needed to do a power of attorney or potentially pursue guardianship. So I think it's that relationship that these parents need, so they're not missing anything, and that they're not leaving anything to chance in their planning. So again, government benefits, it's a floor. It's not what most parents are going to settle for. And then the legal planning. Look, I said there's a vast difference between a special needs trust document and a special needs trust fund. the completion of the plan on the legal front. I mean, we as financial advisors, we can't specifically tell somebody how to title a contractual beneficiary designation, but that's huge. I mean, if they're going to spend the time, effort, emotional investment into creating legal documents, I think it's necessary that then the follow through there is completed, where not only are they updating the beneficiaries, but they're updating it with the right verbiage, that they're doing it in the most tax efficient way possible to allocate certain assets for certain heirs. And look, this does not begin and end with having a special needs trust. So that's important. One of the things to take away too for parents, and I stress this to them because it's intimidating to start figuring out, wow, what does my child need? If I died yesterday, what do they need? I don't have it sitting in a bank account somewhere, so I need to start saving for them. So think of it when you talk to these parents. The parents, while they're alive, they're the living, breathing special needs trust. They'll do everything the trust has the capability of doing. So take some of the stress off these parents' plates by saying, you don't need to be funding this trust now. It actually doesn't make financial sense to be transferring assets to a special needs trust or anything outside of mom and dad's name, unless you're doing some strategic gifting for tax planning, because mom and dad have the control when it's in their name. They have the autonomy on how it's going to get invested when it's in their name. They can use it, yes, for their child with a disability, but also their other kids or themselves when it's in their name. So that the transitioning of assets from mom and dad's name into any other account, special needs trust, ABLE account, doesn't typically need to happen until mom and dad are gone, many years, hopefully, in the future. So I think when you tell that to parents and they don't have to be saving for their retirement, their other kids' education, paying down debts, and save for a lifetime of care for a special needs trust, when you take that one risk or one stressor off the table, it allows them to see the big picture and how all of these pieces work together. And you move into the financial side of this, which is the conversations we have 3 to 4 times a day. And I'm sure you can appreciate they're all the same, but they're all different because every situation is different. I mean, disabilities don't discriminate. You know, somebody could have tens of thousands of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, yet they still have this child of theirs that may always be a child in terms of financial support. So where is this different, and how does it all play a role in the retirement planning? So I tell parents, you know, when you get on an airplane, the flight attendant's going to come on and say, parents, in the event of emergency, you have to put on your oxygen mask first before you help out your children. That's the same thing when it comes to their financial planning. Their oxygen mask is mom and dad's or the caregiver's quality of life and the protection for future care needs for them. If mom and dad can, and the 2 promises we make, which should be I think the 2 main goals of any special needs family. Goal number 1, the priority is mom and dad get to retire as soon as they possibly can. Transition into financial independence, whatever that means to them. Have a highest level of income that is also sustainable with the highest probability of not running out of money before they die, and live a long life taking care of their child, their own needs, their child's needs, their other family's needs, and not run out of money before they die. Pretty straightforward. Retire as soon as possible, have the most income, and not run out before you pass away. So that should be one of the key considerations in every financial decision that is made. The second priority, though, is very closely behind that, which is we also need to take care of this other individual for the rest of his or her life and fund their special needs trust not only adequately, but in the most cost-effective, which to me means least negative impact on mom and dad's retirement income, and most tax-efficient way possible. So whether you're deciding on refinancing or paying off a house or paying for education or investing in pre-tax, Roth, post-tax, what type of life insurance to buy, how to structure your disability or long-term care plans, all of those should focus on, is this decision getting me to the highest amount of income in retirement and allowing me to also use this strategy to either protect assets or to fund the special needs trust in the most tax-efficient way possible. That's how decisions should be made. So this 3-person retirement plan that I think I coined, hopefully I'll take credit for it, but you got mom and dad, mom and mom, dad and dad, whatever it is, the 2 parents, and you have this disabled adult child. So we need to plan for a whole lifetime beyond mom and dad. And right there, your investment timeline is completely different. If you have a 17-year-old with special needs that could live until they're in their 90s, then mom and dad, you should be planning like you're 17. How would you invest if you were 17 years old and had 70, 80 years more of longevity where you need these assets to not only grow, but combat inflation in the most consistent way possible? So being that you have such a longer time horizon here, the old, well, you should buy bonds as you get closer to retirement, or subtract your age from 100, and that's the amount you should have in bonds. All that, just throw that out the window. Especially not in this interest rate environment. Bonds, fixed income in a long-term, multi-generational retirement income portfolio make very little logical sense. Even last year, we dropped 30% in 33 days, and then it took 6 months to hit where we were and hit all-time high after all-time high. You ask anybody, what did you do back then? Did you sell? No. Well, good. You didn't lose anything. Yeah, you experienced a temporary decrease in value, but you didn't permanently lose anything in the stock market positions that you had. You could say that for the end of 2018, when we dropped almost 20% after Thanksgiving, when we dropped 40% from October 2007 through March of 2009, if people didn't sell, they didn't create a loss. So if you explain this to people properly, to say, look, you're never going to lose money as long as you don't sell in a downturn. But it is easier to say that while you're in the accumulation phase, while you're building wealth. It's not as easy to navigate that when you're in the decumulation phase, when you're spending money from these portfolios that you worked hard and diligently to accumulate. You've got different risks in retirement. Sequence of return rears its ugly head. You got unknown longevity, and most parents I've talked to, they want to live one day longer than their child. So if that means they're living to 120, that's their plan. So, okay, we got to plan for that. An unknown life expectancy, unknown tax laws in the future, an uncertain government benefits world, and what things are going to be in the future. So there's a lot of these unknowns and uncertainties. But one thing is for certain, if you look historically, is that the stock market over the long run has always outperformed fixed income, cash, and real estate. So why invest in any of those other three things if you're trying to maximize portfolio growth over the long run? So how we invest different, where we invest. Is it pre-tax? I don't know. That's a big ticking tax time bomb going down the line, not only for the parents' future retirement income, but also the kids. And yes, Secure Act said a trust can still stretch in IRA distributions, but at what tax rate? What tax rate is that special needs trust going to be paying? So parents need to, again, figure that out, to say, hey, maybe I shouldn't be worried about saving taxes today, because you're not saving anything, you're just deferring them, and really evaluate getting Uncle Sam out of our pockets and our kids' pockets for the rest of their lives, and looking at Roth accounts, Roth 401ks, doing Roth conversions when it makes sense to, using taxable portfolios, but in a way where you can manage taxes with individual securities, not mutual funds. And then, how life insurance plays a role in retirement income planning. If that's a brand new thought process for you, then you really need to do some education on what our world is now. In our industry, retirement income planning is really still in its infancy. Navigating 30, 40 years of income needs while another generation behind you is also going to need money. If you go about it the old way of stocks, bonds, and cash, the experts, these PhDs in economics and members that are in the American college have written article after white paper. The research that's been done on this says it's not your parents' retirement. It's not 1990. It's not early 2000. If you want the most optimal, efficient retirement income, you have to start looking at some of the ways that these other strategies like cash value insurance and annuity strategies used the right way are there to optimize retirement income. So that's part of the education process that needs to be provided. The insurance planning is not only there to leverage wealth. I mean, life insurance, there's no better way to leave money behind to the next generation, but you can't forget about disability, or you can't forget about a major medical need in retirement. I mean, if you had a choice as a parent to give money to a nursing home or give it to your family, especially if it's a special needs trust, I think most people would pick the trust or the family. So insurance has to be there as part of the plan to not only continue to grow assets through retirement, but protect them as well. And the beneficiary designation error, as I mentioned too, I think that's equal attorneys' fault that we're not updating all these accounts properly to reflect the legal work that was done to do them. So if you need some of these articles, some of these things to read to say how how should I be guiding people past the fact of the special needs trust to come up with a funding strategy for the special needs trust? How do we do it? So mom and dad, you're going to, navigate the rest of your working lives, pay for education for your neurotypical kids. All right, well, how do we pay for education in a way that has the least negative impact on your retirement income or the legacy to the special needs trust? We need to look at it that way. You want to upsize, buy a second home. You want to structure your mortgage the right way. All right, what's the most realistic way to structure a mortgage in this low interest rate environment where there's a bank's not incentivizing us to pay a house off at sub 3% rates for 30 years? Why would we do anything besides a 30-year fixed mortgage? Doesn't mathematically make sense. So you can fund a special needs trust with pretty much anything: stocks, bonds, real estate, business interest, retirement accounts, pre-tax Roth, life insurance. I mean, you can do it with whatever mix these parents have, but a good chunk of those assets are going to be what's going to sustain the parent for the rest of his or her life. And think of that. I mean, special needs or not, psychologically, if you have this little voice in the back of your head as you navigate spending money on yourself in retirement saying, oh, that's less money for the kids, that's less money for the grandkids, that's going to have an impact on you. And it might stop somebody from spending money in retirement on themselves because they're worried about protecting this principle for the next generation. Well, if you illustrate to them this principle that they're protecting is going to get taxed here in the state of Pennsylvania, we've got an inheritance tax of 4.5% to our kids. It's 12% if it's siblings, 15% to everybody else. And that's just the start of this tax onion as we peel back layers. Okay, what about IRD? What about the income taxes on all these retirement accounts that you have? You really want to protect that principle and leave something that's going to be probably anywhere from 20 to 40% income tax, not to mention, the federal government. When do they come into play? And good news, bad news, however you look at it, if you're not in the federally taxable estate now, it's not saying you won't be in the future if they lower the exemption. So, the thing that we need to show parents as we manage wealth, it's not just about building it, but it's building it to the goal and being outcome focused, not return focused. Returns are important, don't get me wrong. I mean, you need to have some sort of gauge on how you're doing in relation to a plan, but a portfolio is not a plan. It's a means of accomplishing those goals. So that goal and that outcome is max income that is sustainable, max legacy to the next generation. And the parents' IRAs and investment accounts that they spend, we want to give them the peace of mind that they can spend through those assets and still protect that legacy for the next generation to be there and be as tax efficient as possible. So I think that's huge, to show people that it's okay to spend their money, because it is a hard transition psychologically to go from saving your entire working life to now spending. And when you have to worry about that, you need to leave something behind when you die. If that's something that we can do to de-stress them and de-stress their portfolio, there's ways that you can do that. You just need to be aware of the innovations in the retirement income planning field. So we have a calculator I helped design for our special needs advisors throughout the country, but it's a starting point. It's a starting point to figure out, and the way that it has to be done is, mom and dad, you died yesterday. If you died yesterday, what does your child need today based on a given inflation rate and a given rate of return you expect to earn on the investments? What do they need now for the rest of their life based on their mortality? Okay, then what happened if you die 30 years from now? Or what happens if you die based on your more projected mortality? What are the differing amounts that need to be there to protect the funding amount for your child? So you start showing them that, you show them these dollar amounts, and then they look at, well, oh my, how can I live my life and leave this nest egg behind? How long am I going to have to work? What am I going to need the market to do? It becomes another one of these things that causes them to stall in their planning. But when you can show them that, there's ways that you can do this, there's ways that you can leverage government dollars that are coming in eventually at 18, or when somebody retires and Social Security comes into play. If you can bring in the other generation of maybe the grandparents or aunts and uncles to show them ways where they can provide tremendous value to this planning to take some of the burden off the parents. But either way, that number is real. It's a number that they came up with based on what they envision quality of life to look like. So it's just like you're a doctor. Why sugarcoat it? It's like, this is what you need. This is what you have to do. You need to invest your money to maximize your income and still leave this nut behind just to fund what your child needs. Well, what about the other kids? I mean, well, what if that's all you have? If your child needs $2 million and all you have is $2 million when you die, I mean, you're going to have to disinherit your other children. How do you feel about that? Have these hard conversations now prior than, when you can't, when you're no longer here. So I think these plans need to be proactively planned for and discussed as part of the legal planning, definitely part of the financial planning, because look, the receipt of wealth or the lack thereof can change people, can change the roles that certain people had planned to play in their disabled adult siblings' life. If you leave everything to a special needs trust and then the siblings get nothing, I mean, how willing are they going to be to fulfill the certain roles mom and dad had for them? So it's key to have these very hard conversations now with parents so that they understand where where the mistakes have been made along the way. Point out to them that we've been spoiled for the past 10 years. The market's gone up for pretty much the past decade. It's nothing special that we have done as financial advisors. I mean, you could have put your money in any major stock market index and done perfectly fine in the past 10 years. It's just, how long is that going to continue? I mean, the retirees have been spoiled, being able to take money out every year, just figuring out what profit am I going to take. But it's not going to be the case every year when we're talking about prolonged downturns. So I think it makes our jobs collectively working together that much more important, to figure out that there is a need that extends beyond just okay, you have documents and you have assets. It's about providing quality of life for everybody. And the things that scare me is the parents that come to me and say that my child's going to live with me for the rest of their life, or they're going to live with their brother or sister, and they just say that. And I don't think they've ever really had that in-depth conversation with said brother or sister about what life would look like when they're not here. And then the adult brother or sister now has to move in with the neurotypical siblings family and how it changes their quality of life. So we need to focus on everybody. We need to, again, focus on mom and the primary caregivers first, and then the ability to take care of the one that may not be able to take care of themselves. And lastly, the other siblings, and don't let them get lost in the mix, either by giving them roles thrown on their laps by default, or completely disinheriting them just to leave money behind to the special needs trust. So again, I mentioned all these different things on how we can fund the trust. Obviously, the most efficient, and some of you may not like hearing of this, but get the words out of the back of your mind that life insurance is icky or disgusting. There's no better way to leave money behind to the next generation. You can't prove that otherwise. It's completely tax-free if you own it properly. It's the purest form of financial leverage out there. I mean, you're able to create a much larger amount of wealth with just small dollar of wealth. No market risk, no interest rate risks, no longevity risk. Permanent insurance is a way of creating a guaranteed funding strategy for the next generation. What it can also do is it can give you a spending pass as a parent. All right, well, you have $1 million in assets. Let's have $1 million of life insurance. So now you're worth $2 million. Great, you've doubled your estate value. Go spend the $1 million that you have in assets on yourself. You don't have to worry about it. This life insurance is there to fill the bucket back up when you die. You're worried about protecting a long-term care risk, which could be anywhere from $6,000 to $13,000 a month, depending on level of care. Well, if you're afraid of spending a few $100,000 on your own medical care needs, let's use the life insurance again to refill the bucket up if you, God forbid, need long-term care. And if you don't, your heirs are still going to get back more than what you put into it. So it works extremely efficiently in the right way, with the right types of insurance, and whether you like to hear it or not, with the right carriers. Certain carriers have products specifically designed to the special needs community that work better than others when you look at the big picture. But not everybody can qualify. We can't just go buy it off a shelf. So if it's not life insurance, then it's, all right, well, which one of these assets work better? Well, you got the pre-tax retirement accounts that currently get a stepped up cost basis. That could work really well, as like the Roth IRAs, which will go income tax free indefinitely, hopefully. Those work extremely well. Property can be good too because of the stepped up cost basis, but you got the liquidity issues there. I would say the worst one, though, is the pre-tax accounts. To our special needs trusts or to our neurotypical heirs, the absolute worst account you could leave behind because of the embedded IRD. It is something that we need to be proactive and nimble with our income tax planning now and in somebody's retirement, to try to get as much money out of these accounts at known tax rates, which are hopefully lower than what they will be in the future. But look, if you have somebody that's got a couple $1 million in a 401k, it's better than having nothing. You just have to talk to them about this. And you're an attorney and you see somebody's balance sheet and you see this over concentration in pre-tax accounts, you might want to tell them that, hey, the way that you've been going about it, hey, you've done a phenomenal job, but it may be more efficient to explore other strategies going forward. So this would be the conversation all of us can have. Attorneys, you should be having this funding strategy discussion. And I'm not saying fund it now, but a funding strategy in the future that has the least negative impact on one's retirement income. So what you should look out for, red flags. The do-it-yourselfer. If LegalZoom gives you the chills thinking somebody's try to go on there, or the prepaid legal services through their legal aid through work to do their special needs trust, then the same thing for me when it comes to somebody trying to navigate their own financial planning for themselves. Imagine this. I come knocking on your door and I say, hey, look, I want to take over your financial planning. But guess what? I've got no experience. I have no track record. I don't manage any other money. I also have a full-time job that's going to take me away from managing your accounts. And when others crap hits the fan in my life, your account and your financial planning is going to get put to the wayside while I deal with all these other things. That's the equivalent of somebody doing their own financial planning, because that's what it is. Why would you hire anybody that comes to you with that lack of a resume? And that's the same thing you're doing by hiring yourself to manage your own finances. So attorneys, if you see this and they're doing it on their own, they need to know now that there's way too many mistakes that they're going to get hit with in the future by trying to do this. They might not be doing things wrong, but they may not be doing it as efficiently or as optimally as they possibly can. So that's the thing that scares me the most. The other one is these cookie cutter financial advisors that are putting everybody into the same mix, selling them the same insurance that's based on price and that's cheap, and they're all in some model mutual fund portfolio based on their age, or they're in target date retirement funds. Those are also extremely detrimental to a multi-generational retirement income plan. You can go to Vanguard's retirement nest egg calculator to see that in real life by playing with that calculator. So go next slide here. All right, so we talked about insurance really briefly. Insurance needs to be a complement to the wealth that's being built. But again, the right types. Life insurance, it's to protect the caregiver. You know, it's surviving spouses, that sort of thing, and it can be a phenomenal point of leverage. Disability insurance, it's the goose and the whole golden egg thing. I mean, if you're worried about how well your portfolio is going to grow by you investing in your 401k, well, what if you have no money to invest in your 401k? I mean, disability insurance has to be there. And long-term care planning, I'm not saying long-term care insurance, it could work. We kind of strayed away from that, but long-term care planning, the default plan for pretty much the majority of pre-retirees is self-fund. Well, I don't have any strategy to transfer the risk, so I'm just going to spend my money on it, which is okay. Hopefully you live a long, healthy life, or intermediate healthy life and never need care. But if you do, you're going to spend your money, and it's less money for the causes or the people that are close to you. And if you're okay with that, good for you. Most parents that have a kid with special needs are not good with that. So they need to be having a discussion about where long-term care is getting addressed in their planning. ABLE accounts. I incorporate this in the financial planning conversation because this is the same thing of like going back to the two variables to consider with all financial decisions. Is this going to increase my retirement income? Is this going to increase the legacy value to the special needs trust? ABLE accounts are not a replacement, as we all know, for proper planning, legally and or financially. I've seen actually earlier today a chat on a Facebook group about, well, don't get a special needs trust, get an ABLE account. I always jump through the screen. It's like these are regular Joes giving this advice out there to the special needs community, other parents that just don't know. It's limited. You can't spend it on anything. It's limited to how you can fund it. Investment options are a handful of mutual funds. I'm an investment guy. I don't want to be picking from a couple of mutual funds. I want autonomy, individual securities, exchange traded funds. I don't want just, a couple of mutual funds. You ask me, I can show you where I can prove that assets can be invested or leveraged better than funding an ABLE account. And it's still pretty much unknown what happens to ABLE account dollars when the individual passes away. They're still relatively new. Obviously, I believe no states follow the federal guidance. But if somebody comes to you and says, oh, I need an ABLE account, or you're talking about ABLE accounts, again, I pose it to them in the context of, here are your options to save for your child with special needs. And remember, like we talked about, your child with special needs doesn't need anything necessarily in their name, in their special needs trust, or for their future benefit while you're alive, mom and dad. So you're asking me if you should be taking money out of your name and funding an ABLE account. Well, compare it. Let's keep it in your own accounts. Well, you can fund it and invest whatever you want in. You can use it for whatever you want for yourself, for your child, for your other kids. You have Roth accounts that can still create tax-free distributions. You have much more control and flexibility on what you can use the money in your own name. Sounds like a win. All right, well, you have a third-party special needs trust that's got a tax ID number. Well, what if we funded that? You can pretty much invest in anything. Flexibility on using it. You can use it for your child and a lot of flexibility there. And for other things, if they go on a vacation, they can't go by themselves, so you could pay for yourself. But now you don't have full autonomy on what you can use the money for. So it's a completed gift. It's now tailored to a specific use for your child. So not as good as in your name, but better than has to be used for a disability related expense. You can only pick from mutual funds. There could be possibly a state recovery when your loved one dies. I think an ABLE account should be the last thing in that discussion, and where they should only be used, like in Pennsylvania, we get a tax deduction for contributing to them. If somebody's gonna be spending a lot of money on their child that's disability related, I think they should use an ABLE account like a health savings account, more like a conduit. You put it in there to get the tax deduction, you take it back out to pay for the disability related expense. If you need a quick fix, like you're in like a month and you need to get money out of one's name to qualify for SSI or Medicaid or waiver, yeah, it could work much quicker and easier there than going through the legal process of a first party special needs trust. So it can work there, but I don't think anybody should be gifting to it or using this as an investment vehicle. If you've got grandparents that want to fund an ABLE account, the conversation is, well, what if there could be a better way where you could be leveraging this gift to the ABLE account to maximize the future value for your grandson or granddaughter? Isn't that why we're doing this anyway? Yeah, okay, well, let's look at options alternative to ABLE accounts that might work a little bit better. So education, education, education. Just because the major disability organizations tout ABLE accounts like the best thing since sliced bread and this magical cure to special needs planning, they are not. And it's about taking everything in context and what's the best for anybody's specific situation. So we're doing time-wise. All right, 20-minute window. So I'm biased here, and attorneys, you can by all means disagree with me, but let's paint a picture of somebody that's got nothing done. And they're all completely discombobulated financially. They're pulling stuff out of bags and statements. They don't even know accounts are there. They're arguing in front of me about who they want as guardians for their children and who's going to be the trustee. These are all, and how they want to leave money to one another. Do we use Q-tip provisions? Do we leave money outright to each other? What do we do? And how do we equalize the estate? And what ages do we think our other kids are going to be responsible enough to manage their own money? I think with us as financial planners to get people organized, not only to get what do you have, where is it, how is it titled, but to have these preliminary conversations about who do you want as guardians and backups and trustees and backup and powers of attorney that you need to do and why they're important and why Q-tip provisions could be extremely beneficial to young parents, and how you're going to equalize your estate, and do we create trust provisions for your neurotypical heirs, and if so, how long do we extend distributions? And that way, and also, hey, the legal planning you're going to do all this is going to cost X amount of dollars. You're preparing them for this, essentially placing a nice ball on a tee for the attorney to come in and interview the client for to determine if you like the client's interviewing you to see if they like you, but it makes the process that much easier. So I think the financial planner's job is really to get them organized and get them prepared for these legal planning conversations. And again, get your finances in order, get the right investments in the right places and insurance implemented. At least you've got the funding strategy that's going to take care of the child. If the legal planning starts first, if you just can't convince them to do the right thing first, but they want to get a special needs trust so they have that trust document in place, that's awesome. But please make sure they go back to their finances with the right advisors to make sure that they're evaluating the right types of insurance portfolios with the right carriers, and from somebody that has done this hundreds of times over their career for families just like them, rather than them go back to their average advisor that hasn't talked to them about special needs planning at all, and hasn't provided any guidance from a portfolio managed standpoint that's taken their son or daughter situation into context. So and obviously for us, like with the attorneys, it's easy. I've seen enough special needs trusts to realize that the attorney's not versed enough to do it. So it's working and surrounding these families with the right team of people. So but either way, I would imagine most of us from a financial planning standpoint now, since we're doing Zoom meetings, it's complementary, and understanding People that, what might not be broken in their eyes may have a leak that could break, and they need to perform maintenance on it just like they do their cars. Maybe take things apart to realize that, hey, just because you've been doing things a certain way for the past 10 years, and yes, the market's cooperated, what path you're going down is not the most efficient path to what you're trying to accomplish in the future, which is to get you to retire at the highest amount of income. And attorneys, you can even ask your clients, say, all right, well, now that you have your documents in place, what's going to be the most important thing to you while you're taking care of yourselves and your child for the rest of your life? The largest account balance at retirement, or the highest amount of sustainable income at retirement? Most people are going to say income. So then tell them, have the financial decisions that you've made with how you purchased insurance or invested your money, have they been focused on income rather than highest account balance? And if the answer is no, say you should probably talk to somebody that will guide you the way that you need to be guided to get to that outcome in the future. So don't be afraid to talk about, second opinions on investments. Don't be afraid to talk about insurance. It can be a huge part of a multi-generational plan. Get the other family members in the room, the grandparents. I mean, one of the companies that we work with has a patented strategy for multi-generational legacy planning where it's pretty unique. So typically, if a grandparent, the grandparent purchases life insurance on their children to benefit the grandchildren, usually they have to do it the same for all of their kids. So if they have 3 kids, they have to buy a policy on each of those 3 kids to benefit their grandchildren. If one of their children has a child with a disability, so a grandchild with a disability, they can just pick the child that has a disability. The grandparents, through their accumulated wealth, where they're financially independent, can leverage their gifts to own and pay for a life insurance policy on their child. The special needs trust is the beneficiary of that plan. So they're able to take the financial burden off the mom and dad because they don't have to worry about paying for the life insurance that's going to fund the trust. And now their gifts go a lot further. They're making a $15,000, I say it's a $15,000 gift each year. Well, $15,000 each year invested in the market. Yeah, maybe it'll double every 10 years. Maybe it'll double every 7 years. You tell me, I have no idea. But if the grandparents live long enough, it's going to accumulate to some chunk of money in the future, but you need the market to cooperate and taxes to be efficient. What if that $15,000 gift could create $1 million of life insurance from day one? Well, now their gift for who it's going to benefit, the grandchildren, you can't replicate that in the stock market. And if you understand where the role of survivorship insurance versus individual comes into play, you can get a lot of leverage out of these more competitively priced strategies to do the most for the ones that need it, which are these individuals with special needs. And remember, they still don't need anything in their trust as long as mom and dad are here. So the grandparents gifting to the special needs trust, it's great. I mean, you don't look the gift horse in the mouth, but if they can use those gifts more efficiently, I think it's worth a conversation. And Zoom has made the world a lot flatter. So now it might be easier to get all these parties in the same virtual room to talk about what can we do for our grandchild or for our child, and make sure everybody's on the same page. And most importantly for you attorneys, to make sure that these grandparents don't screw up the hard work that you guys did for the parents. So good idea there. Again, from a high level standpoint, so one of the comments in there for ABLE accounts, that's high level. There are other uses for an ABLE account, and just like anything else in here, I tried to leave some quiet time for addressing these questions, and it usually makes me think about something else. So I'm going to go through these. If you have other questions, please volunteer them in the chat. So protecting Medicaid and other benefits once the dependent's eligible for Social Security disability becomes duly eligible for Medicare and resources. So remember, if somebody's going to get Social Security, typically that's going to offset SSI. So that way the means test of benefit SSI goes away. Now they have the entitlement benefit of Social Security. They do still need to be duly eligible for Medicare and Medicaid. So those resource limits still do apply. So rule of thumb, you just never accumulate assets in the individual's name. That special needs trust is important in the future because Medicaid waiver, food stamps, Section 8 housing vouchers, all these other benefits are still needs-based, and the trust still has to be the recipient of any assets that are going to be left behind. Life insurance, on an individual with special needs. I think that's how that question reads. It is typically impossible to get life insurance on a minor with a disability. Doesn't matter if it's autism or Down syndrome or whatever it might be. They're not going to look at it till they're 18. The life insurance should be more focused on whose life needs to be protected, which would be mom and dad. So figure if you have a child with a disability, if you can get them insurance maybe through your work plan or something like that, great. But if you have money in their trust or you have assets in your name, you're going to have enough to fund any kind of final expenses or things like that. The long-term care rider, no insurance company is going to put a long-term care rider on somebody that has a debilitating medical condition. It's just the actuarial risk isn't going to allow it. The questionnaire, feel free to email me and I can walk you through it. Online, it's not accessible to the public, but I can walk you through it, see how it works. But the publications that come out, the Academy of Special Needs Planners, if you're not members of that, I mean, that has a tremendous newsletter that they populate every month. It's awesome. I mean, my clients love it. I love it because I don't have to do anything. They send the articles out and I just duplicate the newsletter each month. But the articles are all timely and they span the special needs universe, not just financial or legal stuff, ABLE, benefits, housing things, that sort of thing. ABLE, I think it's the ABLE National Resource Center, ABLE NRC has a newsletter with updates on ABLE, or your state would probably have one as well. But I recommend talking to your state treasury department and just grill them on how's the ABLE account work. How does it, and ask them specifically when a beneficiary dies and the money's left in the ABLE account, what are you doing from a state standpoint with these assets? The 3-person retirement involving the entire family. So it's a hard one. I say the 3-person really is, say it's the parents and the disabled adult child, but the neurotypical siblings are lost in the mix predominantly from who's going to caregive for their sibling when the parents are gone, and an inequitable estate that's left behind. There are ways, like if you ask most parents, if you could do it, if you could still live your life, maximize your income, still take care of your child with special needs and equalize things to your other kids and grandchildren, would you do it? Most people are going to say yes. So you can show them there's ways that they can do that they can take care of all of those 3 pieces, but it involves a different approach than probably what they've been used to doing. But I think, especially if a parent's got a default plan of my child's going to live with his brother or sister when we die, they have to be part of that conversation. Not only be part of the conversation, but I think they should be shown, oh, here's a sibling who's living with their disabled adult brother or sister. One of the attorneys I work with closely here lives his adult brother with Down syndrome. I don't know if it may not be Down syndrome, but he lives with him. And transportation out here, it's not that great. It's not always on time or even comes. So what he has to do is make sure that he gets to and from his work or his day program on a daily basis. So that affects his or his wife's ability to get to places at times. And, going away on a vacation, the 2 of them, when they have a disabled adult sibling living at home, it may not even be part of the plan anymore. So quality of life of mom and dad, quality of life of the disabled adult child, and quality of life of, well, at least she gave me 50 minutes before she came in and got me, but quality of life of the other siblings as well. I mean, this is all important, and care management is the piece that ties that the quality of life for the neurotypical siblings. A trust funded to provide the supports for a sibling who has their own life, career, and commitments, family, to use a private agency and use trust assets to pay for them, to check in on their brother or sister, to take them out to dinner, to do all these things the government's not going to do. It's huge. But parents need to think about it. They need to start researching, what's a care management agency look like? How much could it cost? $40 an hour to $100 an hour. And then what would I want every day if I was not here to do it? And that's part of the questionnaire that we use to determine how much we need to fund a trust, because that's usually the biggest expense. It's the quality of life on a daily, weekly basis. So survivorship. So I did a lot of due diligence on this and actually helped create a survivorship whole life product for one of the carriers we work with, because there's universal life and different flavors of that. Whole life, when you're trying to do goal number 1, retirement income planning and fund a legacy, whole life, you do not give up the guarantee of the death benefit. So if you're going to tap into cash value in retirement from that life insurance policy, you're not jeopardizing the guarantee, the death benefit, to be there to fund the trust. Any universal life contract, you're taking cash value out, could affect the guarantee. So that's why universal life does not work with accomplishing both goals. The idea of accessing cash value in life insurance is, think of it this way. You're in retirement, you need to spend money, the stock market's going through a temporary decline. Ideally, you're not selling your stocks when they're temporarily lower, right? So how do you do it? You have to create assets that are negatively correlated to the market. Bank accounts, they don't earn anything. Your home equity is a huge resource in retirement. That's why every retiree should have a home equity line of credit open to them so it's accessible. And cash value life insurance. Whole life insurance has been around since the 1840s. It's one of those things that's it's not going to compete with your stocks. It's not what it's meant to do. It's going to grow by 3 to 4% guaranteed and tax-free. It's much better than a CD or bank account. It's much better than a bond right now, with none of the downside risk of interest rates rising, or default risk or any of those things that bonds carry with them. So a cash value life insurance policy strategically can be used to replace fixed income in a retirement portfolio. So that's a whole other conversation. Special needs trusts, unlimited amounts of special needs trusts that somebody can have, unlike an ABLE account where somebody can only have one of them. Oh yeah, what to read? There's a bunch of books. It's going to be self-education. John Nadworny wrote a book. I think it's called The Special Needs Planning Guide. One of the best books I've ever read. Him and Cynthia Haddad, I think, was the co-author of that. I think they were supposed to be coming out with a newer version, but that book is phenomenal. I would recommend some of the no-low books on special needs trusts, Guide to Being a Trustee, all these other things that are out there. I have not personally worked with a lot of veterans stuff, but I have a colleague in Florida that is a vet himself, does special needs planning. So he's like my go-to person when it comes to like the government, a VA pension. You're able to provide that to a loved one with a disability, to their special needs trust, a first party special needs trust. So there's all these unique things that come with that. A lawyer in Florida. Well, Florida's a big state, so if you want to email me directly, I can tell you where to look. All right, so that multi-generational legacy planning. So ideally, if the grandparents are doing, they're overfunding the life insurance, so it's creating its ability to be self-sustaining in the future. But look at it this way. So a child turns 18, they're going to have $800 a month of SSI coming in. Parents charge room and board. They don't pay for any of their meals, or at least tell the government that. They'll maximize $800 a month. They transition the money through room and board and whatnot into their name. Either way, it's $800 a month. That's excess cash flow for mom and dad. So that $800 a month can pick up the funding slack when the grandparents are deceased indirectly. Mom or dad retires, or starts collecting Social Security retirement rather. And now that disabled adult child gets 50% of the Social Security benefit, that could pick up the funding slack on the life insurance. And again, you're going to get a lot more leverage utilizing the government's dollars indirectly with life insurance than you ever will trying to invest it in the stock market. You can't replicate it. Newsletter, you can email me for that. Housing issues. Whew. Be a whole presentation on that. Yes, housing issue is the key word. There is an issue with housing in the future. There's not a lot of good options. We talk to parents all the time. The 3 transitions. One transition is from early intervention into the school district. They get hit with their first of many IEPs. Hard transition. Second transition from 14 to 21, transition to when the bus stops coming. Even harder transition. Cliff they fall off of, benefits, IDEA go away. That third transition has to be part of a proactive plan, which is, when does your child not live with you anymore? It can't be after you died and now we have to reactively figure this out. So that's got to be part of it, and understanding there could be an expense for that. We do have a memorandum of intent template that we use in helping clients do that. Vacation, social things outside of the special needs trust. I mean, parents, while you're alive, you're going to pay for all that fun stuff. The trust can pay for all that fun stuff when you're dead. The ABLE account, though, cannot. So the book is, I think it's called the Special Needs Planning Guide. John Nadworny, I believe, is the gentleman's name. Well, I could keep talking. Hopefully, I got you enough information where you can use this in your own practices, where you can, be more than what you are as your profession as an advisor, an accountant, an attorney, and know that your job's not complete until these other pieces of the puzzle all fit in there. Because frankly, me without the attorneys, my work's not going to be as good. And the attorneys without people like us, it's not going to do what we all do this for, which is to advocate for these individuals that may have no voice at the table when decisions are made on their behalf. So let me see if I can, I might butcher his name, but I believe John Nadworny is the author, and I think it's called the Special Needs Planning Guide. I think I didn't put my contact information, so I apologize. There you go. Oh, there you go. Thanks, David. Made that easier for all of us. That's a phenomenal book. So let's see if there's any other questions on here, but I'll put on Peppa Pig in a minute. Hold on. Resources on government benefits. Yeah, I would find in your network of other referral people, somebody that's a benefits expert. I've got two up here in the Philly area that I work with regularly. One that does like person-centered planning, one that does benefits navigation. Stop touching the mouse. And they are huge because, like I said, I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm not going to walk somebody through an SSI appeal or application. So they work globally and virtually most of the time anyway. So if you need a referral or two, I can give you a name. So feel free to reach out to me. I mean, I could be a resource however you like me to, but because we're all doing this for the same greater good for these families that need us. So good. She got through all my disclosures. None of that was tax or legal advice for anybody that was thinking on there. So thank you very much for spending an hour with me. Thank you for tuning into this. Please let me know if I can ever help. Thank you guys very, very much.